Hello and welcome to this webinar, the first in our Prepping for Venture Capital series of 101s with Geeks and Experts. I'm your moderator, Jenny Alton from the New York Small Business Development Center Central Office. Today, as your presenters, we have Sneha Saigal, who is the co-founder and CEO of Geeks and Experts, and Olivia Ludington, who is a PR specialist and founder of Ludington Media, and a Forbes contributor. This webinar is brought to you by the New York Small Business Development Center network of 20 campus-based centers and many more outreach offices located across New York State, along with a central office based in Albany. The NYSBDC is a U.S. Small Business Administration resource partner. Our free advising, education, research, and advocacy services are made possible by funding from the SBA, New York State, and our host campuses. So you know this session is being recorded. We will share a link to the recording and slides with attendees in the next few days in a follow-up email. Attendees are muted and will not be on camera. Your chats, I will open the chat in just a moment, and those chats will be visible to me and to our presenters only today. If you have any questions during the presentation, please don't hesitate to type them in the Q&A box as they come up. You can open Zoom's Q&A box from the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom window. We'll save questions for a Q&A session at the end of the presentation to make sure Sneha and Olivia can get through all of their material today. And with that, I will turn the time over to Sneha.
Thank you so much for that, Jenny, and thank you to the Small Business Development Center for having us here. I am Sneha. Good afternoon. I'm calling from New York, and it's so good to be here with all of you. We're very excited to kick off the session. Both Olivia and I are here to share inputs on PR, public relations, media pitching. So excited to dig into the session with you, and let's kick it off. So a little bit about my background. I have been in marketing and PR for about a decade, and this spans working with agency like Ogilvy back in India, and also working with early stage startups and small and medium businesses across industries, from food tech to fashion to small and medium businesses in industries like social impact to maritime. And last year, I also had the opportunity to participate in a Techstars accelerator with Geeks and Experts. And yeah, over this time, I have learned a fair ton of PR for myself as well, featuring in Forbes and the NASDAQ and Starter Story. So I'm excited to be here with Olivia and share all the things that we have learned and seen working with clients from the seed to series A, B, C across industries, from fintech to B2B SaaS. And kick it off to Olivia to introduce herself also.
Hey guys, thank you so much for having me. To give a little bit about my background, I also was at Ogilvy, which is something that Sneha and I have some crossover there as well. I was also previously at Hotwire PR before heading out on my own in 2018. I've worked primarily in the venture space, so I represent authors, angel investors, high net worth executives. I also have a bunch of really awesome collaborators who help on the team and work to kind of get, different brands really great media coverage. Sneha and I also work with a number of startups in the fintech space, cybersecurity, and I've also done some work in B2B SaaS. I'm a Forbes contributor, which is definitely a blessing. I didn't know I would ever say that, but that's definitely been very cool. And their team is really talented and lovely to work with. I've also been featured in PR Week and Fast Company as well.
So we're here to share this webinar with you wonderful people. And this webinar is pretty much for anybody who wants to understand PR 101, right? From founders to coaches, solopreneurs, consultants, small business owners, anybody who wants to dip their toes into how do they start pitching themselves as thought leader, pitching their business to the media. And this is something we want you to take away empowered with, how to start advocating for that in your own niche. What are the baby steps you can take today? And how do you implement some of these practices on a routine basis to make sure that your brand gets the visibility that it deserves, it gets the credibility over time with earned media, because the power of earned media is very, very important to understand. And I like to kind of emphasize over here the difference between marketing and PR. So Olivia, if you want to pitch in here, but I like to give this example that PR is when I go around telling people that Olivia makes an amazing tiramisu. And marketing is if Olivia goes around telling everybody that she makes amazing tiramisu. So one's a referral, a recommendation, and the other one is more of like a humble brag. Let's put it that way. So what we want to identify here is that every individual can actually use their own authority to get that earned media through all of these recommended or established platforms and publications. So here we want to break down how that works, what to do, and some of things not to do in today's AI age as well, and some of the tools that you have at your disposal to start pitching, and then some of the common pitfalls that you can avoid. So I want to start with some of the myths that we hear about in PR. One is that you only have a press release to circulate, and that is the only tool at your disposal when you're starting out. This is definitely a myth that we'll be, busting, because there are so many other ways that you can reach out to journalists and top tier outlets. You do not have to rely on only a press release. That can be a portion of your PR or communication strategy. The second one is that you need to be running $1 million business or have several millions in revenue, and only then can you gain that credibility or trust from domain authorities or from some of these journalists. The next myth is that you need to have a massive audience, or you have had to written multiple books and won all these awards. Well, I can vouch for the fact that you do not have to. In fact, if at all, I would say that this is the way you can actually build that audience. You can actually get those book deals, because Olivia and I have seen clients actually build that thought leadership and then become domain experts and get those book deals from big publishing companies as well. And the next point is that you need to spend on paid ads or paid sponsored posts and sign annual retainers with big agencies who promise you or guarantee you placements. This is another thing that we are very wary of telling our clients, especially if they're starting out in the early stages, is to not fall for that. Because if you are getting a promised placement, that is probably going to be a sponsored post. It's not going to be the same impact as an earned media placement would get you.
Yep.
The next point is that you need to spend too much time on this. If you're starting out on your own, we understand. We're both business owners. We understand that you have so many other things to take care of. So what we're trying to do here is explain to you the things that you can do on a regular basis, just the way you do other admin tasks or other marketing related tasks or business development related tasks. Just add this to your tool of things that you cover in your calendar. So you don't need to be spending hours on this every day. Olivia, if you have anything to add to that, I know you really resonated with the paid sponsored post.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one thing to keep in mind is that if an agency ever approaches you and says they guarantee like a top tier placement or a top tier kind of earned article, I always see that as kind of a red flag. The other thing that I love that you mentioned here, Sneha, is that a common myth is that you need to have this massive audience existing, or kind of PR is only reserved for folks that already run, incredibly super successful businesses and already have written books and already have that momentum. It's actually kind of, surprisingly the opposite. The time to do PR is when you're looking to become that, to become kind of that $1 million business. So gotta try to work your way there.
Absolutely. And one of the reasons, of course, there are many now in today's AI age, there are a lot of reasons that we should not be relying only on paid ads or social media. And that is, the algorithm is never in your favor. I mean, you're not going to be able to control the amount of hits that your posts get or your thought leadership content gets. PR is one of those places. Once a journalist has written about you and posted it on that platform, it's going to be there forever. Also, paid ads, of course, require so much of trial and error. I mean, we've got clients who have spent so much time and money just trying to get the traction, trying to get the traffic to their websites, and end up spending a lot of money because a lot of these ads are not actually integrated. They're just interrupting a lot of your marketing or communication channels. So PR is one way to control the narrative, to control what kind of content you're sharing, what kind of stories and narratives is being written about you out there. So this is something, again, we wanted to just elaborate on. And I'll share Olivia now to tell us a little bit more why it's important.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a nerd about media relations and PR. I've been doing it for a little bit, so I really love all this stuff. So I'm a little biased when I tell you that it's important, but I can definitely talk a little bit about this for sure. So a couple, ways that press and kind of earned media help to kind of build your brand. One, it builds brand credibility. So helping you to secure larger retained customers down the road, helping you to people that potentially will know you, being able to kind of grow that that brand voice from an investor point of view down the road as well. Another couple reasons why PR is also really important for a businesses at any stage, but especially growing and kind of scaling businesses, is that it helps to differentiate your point of view. And this kind of rolls back into this third point here, which is able to, kind of showcase your thought leadership. So when we talk about point of view and thought leadership, what I always love to kind of share, especially with clients that are starting on, is that media love, really strong storylines, and they're going to resonate with a person, not a brand. They're going to resonate with the executive behind a startup, a founder behind a startup, maybe a high net worth, angel investor kind of behind their fund. People want to connect with people, not brands. And that's why it's so important to, let's say you have a food tech startup and you start putting out thought leadership content on this topic. Earned media helps to kind of differentiate your point of view on that, and helps you also kind of own the conversation in that realm, so you can kind of be seen as a thought leader in that space. In a similar vein, it also increases your share of voice. So that means share of voice, I think, definitely is, or SOV as it's called in on the agency side, is just essentially an aggregate of all kind of coverage, and being able to parse out who is kind of being the most strategic and who has the most relevant or influential voice in comparison to your competitors. So if we have a list of 10 competitors, and you might not be, the highest revenue of your competitors at the moment, if you're consistently in the media, being really humble, chatting with folks, being able to really put yourself out there and showcase relevant thought leadership content on your industry, that will definitely help to kind of increase your share of voice. Another two kind of reasons why press and earned media is so important is that it boosts visibility, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you are your brand and you're the face of your brand, and that, having that earned visibility will help you down the road. We're also seeing that brands that are kind of seasonal or annual, I have a good friend that has an e-commerce business called Queerly Designs, and because she's had such a great opportunity in the past with great coverage during Pride Month, we see year over year she's able to kind of spike that coverage, and we see kind of coverage coming in during June and kind of the busier season. So having that kind of unique viewpoint, you'll see, will help you kind of continue to build traction down the road. Another great, thought piece, and I think this is so important as well, is that from the technical side, building SEO and domain authority with using PR as a really thoughtful strategy and quality link building is going to be really important for your brand to kind of come up as an ongoing recommended company for folks to, when they're Googling you. Your SEO and domain authority also impacts the way that folks are see you on social media, on X. So SEO, even though does get a little technical, and Sneha and we're definitely not those technical SEOs, coders, but for sure it does really impact the value in being able to drive those high quality links back to your website as really, really important for the growth of your brand.
Absolutely. I love that you shared the Googling before anyone purchases. And I think that's so relevant for even CPG brands or consumer brands, or even companies that are looking for that outside capital, venture funding, angel investors. That is the first touch point that a lot of people will have, is just researching the brand online. And it even applies for crowdfunding campaigns. I mean, if you have seen, a lot of the successful campaigns will be successful if they've done some really groundbreaking PR strategies and got their differentiating point of view out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple different types of ways that we pitch, quote unquote, with PR. So to even take this a step backwards, so when we're pitching a journalist, typically it can be anything from an email, a text, a call. In my experience, I've pitched journalists in every which way besides like carrier pigeon at this point, but I wouldn't put it past me. But there's a couple, I would say three-ish, kind of tactical ways of PR pitching. So the first one is proactive outreach. So that means planned announcements that we consistently, are able to almost like on a planned cadence or a timeline. So that's if you have like a press release strategy and kind of consistent outreach. So for example, Sneha and I have done this for like a funding announcement. A customer acquisition can be a great one, an award win. If you have, a company that's, going to IPO, or a brand that's has achieved an exit, that's another great, press release concept. And so another way for the value, I think, of press releases and kind of having this proactive strategy is that it helps you to show a possible investor down the road that you guys are really growing, or at least giving that that viewpoint of like consistent growth. And again, being able to kind of plan that will be helpful for investor and growing that credibility. The second type of PR pitching is reactive. So this is definitely where I think you gotta, cut your teeth a little bit with PR in that realm. So what some kind of really great opportunities here, I think, are just being consistently checking X on some of the hashtags, hashtag journal request. There are some other really great tools that publicists use, such as Hero. Quoted is a fantastic platform that I think is really worth investing in. And the goal here is looking for a trending topic or kind of, unique viewpoint or angle within the media on a relevant conversation topic that you should be owning as a founder, and being able to kind of share a quote or, a comment on this topic with a reporter like in real time, and work to kind of slot in your name and slot in your brand hyperlink usually into an article, though it's not perfect, but it's definitely a great strategy as well. Another great way for, to consistently earn press, I think, is securing guest posts, or we like to call them thought leadership placements in publications. So for example, approaching a reporter with a really thoughtful key term is non-promotional piece of content on a topic, and just floating it to an editor and saying, here's what my brand is doing. I'd love to be able to publish this with you guys. Is this something that you'd be interested in? And it definitely, I think, continues to build traction momentum for your company. And finally, the third type of just kind of tactical PR pitching that I think would be helpful for early stage folks to kind of keep in mind is newsjacking. So this also is called issues jumping in the UK. I know it's called a couple different terms in different regions, but it typically means that if there is a trending news item, whether it be an earnings report, let's see, a recent IPO, maybe there's, a big move from like an Elon Musk character about a company in your industry. Anything that's kind of like a trending news item, being able to, slot in a unique perspective, a unique nuance, or a really unique kind of contrarian statistic about this trending topic, and be able to show that about this space and you can speak of relevance, something of relevance to a reporter, helps you to kind of slot in your point of view there from a newsjacking point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like a lot of these are also good entry points, especially the reactive one. It's a great entry point for somebody starting out in PR to just build that relationship with the journalist. So if you are a source for an article that they're writing and they're on a tight timeline or a deadline, you're actually helping them. So that's a great way to just add value. And even if you are not a direct source, just connecting them maybe to somebody else who would be a great connection or input, for whatever they're looking for is just a great way to start building that relationship. Because at the end of the day, even media pitching does involve that relationship building in the long term. So I love that you said it's non-promotional, more with like a give first mindset.
Totally. Yeah. And I love that you had that. I think that's a sentiment that I think really resonates with media, as they are pitched. Something to keep in mind too, is they are constantly being pitched from different brands. So if they can start to really see you as a really authentic resource. So what I mean by that is like connecting them with and anyone else in your network that they might be looking for, just really being able to build those relationships in an organic way, and definitely have that kind of like stewardship mindset when you're interacting with them.
Absolutely.
Cool.
So you're,
Oh yeah, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
So cool. So just to kind of think about understanding what channels are best for you. This kind of ranges from each industry, across the board. I think digital PR. So we have a couple different channels that in this realm that I think are important. So digital is more of those top tier outlets. So Wall Street Journal, CNBC, Bloomberg, Forbes. These are kind of like the longer lead stories that take a little bit of time to develop. Fortune, I think, would also be in here. Secondly, you should probably start to think about what trade or like niche publications, and Sneha, we talk a little bit more about this later on, but what kind of trade publications are your target customers reading, and where kind of are they quote unquote living that you need to keep an eye on. Other channels that are always helpful to kind of think about are podcasts, print, TV, radio, and then obviously social media. Influencers are increasingly an important channel, and I think in the next couple of years, it's going to be certainly neck and neck, and with some of these more broadcast outlets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just before we, actually get down to what a pitch involves, we love to make sure our clients, when they come to us, to start pitching, that there are some things that they're already doing, already have in place, and these are things that you should be doing in general with your brand, with your business website. Is before you reach out to a journalist, is to make sure that wherever you are driving the traffic, if you're pitching to them about your business, do you have a website that is ready? Do you have it already built out with maybe some interesting case studies or testimonials that will just further add proof to what they're actually looking for when they come to that website, to validate whether they want to actually connect with you, take this conversation forward. LinkedIn, and now even X, of course, is another great way to keep everything up to date there. So whether you are actively building your brand there, you're sharing relevant news or predictions, things like that on your LinkedIn article or your LinkedIn profile, that's a great way to show them that you are a true person, you actually exist, because we know with today, with the number of bots and spams and things like that, it's even more helpful if you just are able to prove that you are human and you are active and easily reachable. Because sometimes when you actually pitch to the journalist and they come back saying they're ready to connect, and then you disappear for a few days or for a few weeks, that does not reflect nicely on you, on your brand. And you're actually missing out on an opportunity for them to reach out to you in the future as well. So just some of these things you can do beforehand. Another thing is identifying a media list that focuses on your industry. And I like that Olivia mentioned that in the niche publications, because we work with clients who are in very specific industries. Let's take cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is a very specific niche, and you want to be able to reach out to journalists that speak to that audience that you actually cater to, because otherwise you're just wasting a lot of resources, time, and energy reaching out to journalists that are not that relevant, that don't cover the topics that you actually care about. So this is something that you must do some homework about, and before you even start out. And the next one is just softly engaging with some of these journalists who are already in your network. And this could be top tier journalists, it could be podcast hosts, if that's an avenue that you want to explore when you're starting out. Is just being kind of networking with them. And this is something you actively want to do by sharing their content, engaging with their content. If you find it useful, circulating it within your network, within your group, things like that just really make you seen, and make the journalist also feel seen and heard and understood. And another cool tip that I like to share is to install Hunter, which is a very nice tool to be able to get some emails of the journalists that you want to reach out to. It doesn't always work, but yeah, there are good chances that you'll be able to find a direct link to a journalist's email ID and write to them, just so you can cut through that noise instead of sending in a pitch to info at XYZ. So always nicer if you can get a direct contact with them. Now, the pitch is something that has a lot of meat here. So Olivia, if there's something that you want to add here in terms of what are the different things you can do, because there are quite a few. Number one is establishing your background. Why are you the right person to be talking about this company, or what the business you're building, the brand that you're building? What makes you the right person? So are there any things you've done in the past, the number of years of experience you have in this space. What can you add in that opening that makes you just credible? And the second thing is the timing. And I think the timing is as important because there's so much going on in the world today that journalists have a bunch of different important things to talk about. Let's take an example of the Baltimore Bridge disaster, right? When that happened, in the supply chain industry, no matter what groundbreaking work your company is probably doing, it would not be as important as the implications of that event. So understanding the timing and just coming across not tone deaf, right? Because if you are pitching somebody when there's something completely earth-shattering happening, it just shows you are not aware, or you are just kind of deaf to the noise that is out there. So make sure that there's relevancy to when you reach out to them. And differentiating factor is something that Olivia mentioned also early on about what PR does for you and for your brand. And I think this is the part where you can bring out your spiky point of view, whether it is the fact that you have a very different take on how the industry is heading, or predictions for what you're seeing in 2024, and how you think that things are going to be very different, contrary to what other maybe outlets are saying, or contrary to what you have seen in the past. These are just ways to add that importance, or additional point of view for journalists to say that, I want to chat with this person because it seems like they have something interesting to say here. And always helps, of course, if you have any other past features that you can just leverage, because it kind of feels like a nice dots connect when you already start doing that early on, which is why we're a strong advocate for a lot of our clients actually doing this early on. And then when they're at that stage, then they can actually hire PR specialists like us to take it up to the next level. So it's always nice if you have something that you've done in the past. Maybe it's an award, maybe it's some sort of presentation that you gave anywhere that you were maybe quoted. Adding that will just help your chances of getting that feature. And then it's always helpful if you have a lot of those media collaterals ready. Maybe it is a one-pager that you can link them to. Maybe keep the headshot ready, because if they reach out to you and say, hey, do you have a headshot and a bio that we can add to your quote, that you want to have that ready and not go scrambling for that last minute.
Yeah, and just to add to this, I think going back to number 2 and number 4 are so important. One thing I think it's really important to think about with media is that you're emailing or quote unquote pitching or reaching out to a journalist. This is also a person that's just living, breathing person like you, and so it's important to think about the timing and just being really really cognizant of the time that you reach out to them, especially with so many, really crazy tragedies going on in the news. Just be really cognizant of your timing, and especially if it's like during the holidays, or if it's like, if you closely follow a reporter on X and they're recently announced that they're taking a vacation, it's always respectful to kind of hold off on outreach during that time. Kind of also going back to number 4 here, this kind of talk, PR builds on PR, right? So if we have previous thought leadership articles on this topic, it'll help to strengthen your pitch, especially because if the editor is junior, they're going to have to quote unquote sell your story concept to their senior editorial team, and that includes Googling you. So you need to start kind of thinking about almost like working backwards. Like, if you want this really great feature, here are the things that need to happen from the jump, and trying to think working backwards in that regard.
Absolutely. And after you pitch, of course, I like how Olivia pointed out the follow-ups and being mindful of that. I think those are really, really important things to keep in mind. Try seeing if you can involve, add like a mail tracking tool, because that's always helpful to know if the journalist has opened the email. If they've read it a couple of times, then they're interested, and you can kind of engage with them after a week, connect with them even on social media and say, hey, I sent you this pitch on, so-and-so date, just wanted to touch base. But of course, doing it all in a very, very thoughtful manner. And that's, exactly like Olivia said, just remember, it is a long-term game, and you want to build that relationship with them. It's not that you're going to get featured just once and for all. You want to make sure that that journalist comes back to you again down the line. So just being mindful of how you engage with them before the pitch, during the pitch, and even after you've pitched, in fact. I mean, that is something, if you got pitched, hey, congratulations, that's amazing. How are you going to now continue thanking them or adding value to their network, to their resources, just engaging with them instead of kind of shutting it off once you've got your pitch and moved on from there. And again, in terms of the follow-ups, I think it's important to keep in mind that there are many things going on other than your story and your pitch. So instead of coming across as so like promotional and braggy, just seeing how you can actually just integrate into their current situation or things that are going on in the world.
Yeah.
Now, we'd love to, of course, jump into some of the success stories. And this is a blend of, PR that Olivia and I have both secured for ourselves, also for some of the clients that we have worked on, because it does involve, a little bit of both that exactly, niche pitching of trade publications, or it involves like taking your own story, like this one, which Olivia, pitched during the lockdown. Those are just some things that we want to deep dive into. So, Olivia, if you want to share a little bit about this PR Week one, I think it will be interesting. And then we can go on to the podcasts that we have, pitched before.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was one that I've worked with this reporter a little bit in the past, and it's certainly a publication being in the PR world that I've just always kept an eye on. It started with Thomas just doing a quick call out on X, and then he shared just shared like recommendations about DMs. It was very early on in the lockdown, and he was saying, how has this impacted your work? Shoot me, a DM from this. And what I love about this is he had it as a like WhatsApp text kind of like Q&A with me and a couple other folks that he had chosen for the story. And so I just kind of approached him and was like really transparent about it. I was like, I follow your coverage. I'm interested in, sharing how this has impacted me. And, I'm obviously like based in New York City, and it could provide like kind of that New York angle. And so he was really transparent about it and was really interested. But again, I remember in this pitch, I also said to him, can I put you in touch with some other folks that I know have also started like consistently working from home for this? And I think that's really important, is like you're the best way. I always say this for like, and it's a good, I think, life lesson, not just for like pitching, but I think for growing, your client base, growing your investor network. Try to approach people and see yourself as kind of like a connector versus just like a way to, promote yourself. And so really approaching someone and saying like, can I connect you to someone? Can I, share this resource with you? So yeah. And then he asked me last minute for photos, and I had my roommate Halsey at the time take this photo of my little blind 14-year-old dog Leah here. But that's it turned out to be a good piece, and definitely a good case study, I think, for media outreach.
Yeah, absolutely. And to, chime into that part for me as well, some of the placements that I've got, like, for example, this NASDAQ one here was when I was connecting with other founders in a community, and one of the founders said, hey, there's, they're looking for nominations for faces of entrepreneurs and, people who are working in different spaces. And that was, again, something that came out of just a founder network there. So just keep your eyes peeled for opportunities like this. Maybe you could be nominating another founder when you see something like that that's valuable. Because that is the way to start out. You're adding value to other people in your network who think about you. When maybe something that comes is relevant for you comes along. So just start with that give first mindset for sure. Also want to jump in a little bit about podcasts, because that's something that I personally feel has been a great way to start out personally for me. And this is just something that I think is very accessible for a lot of business owners and founders. I mean, think about it. It is, as much as just getting dressed and coming to talk about a topic that you're really passionate about. So it does not involve a high ROI initially. You don't have to invest in like fancy mics or fancy equipment. You can just connect with people who are building podcasts or recording podcasts in any domain that you're interested in. And trust me, there are podcasts for every topic that you would be passionate about, right? From whether it is hormonal health or femtech or fintech, there's always a podcast out there. And personally for me, I have found a lot of value in connecting with the hosts, maybe guests who have founder friends who have been on some of these podcasts, and then pitching to those hosts saying, hey, I saw you interviewed one of my founder friends, and I love what they're doing, and this is how I could add value to your audience. Or this is what your audience is probably interested in. I could do like a deliverable with it, or a deep dive into a specific topic. So just kind of starting out with that, low hanging fruit. And again, going back to the different channels that we talked about, if podcast is one that you are interested in, then definitely leverage that. But if you think you are more comfortable just starting out with like the thought leadership pieces, then that is where you want to leverage your expertise, maybe more from a writing standpoint. So, crafting those pitches that in a wholesome way, like share your story. So think about what medium works best for you, because it has to be sustainable. You don't want to be doing this once and then, putting a complete pause on your PR outreach or media outreach. And here's some of the placements. Again, just diving into Olivia and my personal experience with getting into some of these top tier outlets. Personally, for me, when this Forbes journalist Cheryl, which thank you so much for this feature, when she reached out, we were at a very different place. Like Geeks Experts was, kind of just starting out when I connected with her, and of course, I mean, it was Forbes. So I was very excited to, pitch my story and why I got into this space to begin with. And it turns out that it was not a relevant, connection that time or a relevant piece. But she reached out a few months later and she said, "Hey, I noticed you pivoted." And I said, "Yes, we did, kind of make a pivot, and this is the reason we did and how we went about it." So more than just exactly, what the business does, she was also really interested in how we pivoted. So I think there's something important to notice there, that it doesn't have to be just a successful outcome, but it can also be the journey or the process that you went through. What strategies did you deploy that could be valuable for other readers? And always think of it as, who is that reader? For a fast company as well, I'm sure Olivia's has thought about, like, who's that reader that's actually going to read this piece, so that she can actually write content that adds value to them. So that's just something that I had a personal experience with. If you want to add something about the fast company feature, Olivia.
Yeah, absolutely. So this piece came out at a time where there was a number of kind of tech layoffs, and I was working with another editor for another publication. She also was just chatting. She was like, we're looking for a contributor about this topic. And her and I went back and forth talking a little bit about the topic. And she was like, why don't you take a shot at drafting this, because you seem to be able to speak to it. So I said, all right, I'll try my best, and was able to work out a piece with her. But yeah, I think to your point, Sneha, really understanding what the reader is going to kind of quote unquote, even for the perspective of like a startup, when we think about a reader, we're talking about like almost like the end user, right? Of who is the reader of Fast Company, who is going to be the reader of Forbes, usually like a C-suite leader or someone who's looking to grow their own business. So thinking about something focused on like leadership or scaling a business, or even just like workplace trends are also helpful. But really keeping that potential reader in mind will help you to craft your pitch specifically to the publication.
Absolutely. And we have a couple more case studies to go. So hang in there. We are going to get to some Q&A as well. So almost near the end now. I'd love for Olivia to share a little bit more about the niche publications that we talked about early on, because I think that is so important, and a lot of maybe founders miss out on this key portion.
Totally. Yeah. So niche publications, I say, are at times, even though it might not be like, the shiny brand name of a publication that you're typically used to, sometimes niche publications will help to build your own brand authority in comparison to your competitors, in comparison to investors that closely follow that industry. So for example, with this client, we got them in Adweek, Retail Touchpoints, Packaging Dive, a couple different brands that were really niche and specific to their target customer, target audience. And this started in the beginning because we had a really kind of candid conversation with them saying, what are your kind of target audience and your ideal customer profile, and figuring out where those customers, quote unquote, live and read, and then targeting our publications that way. Because at the end of the day, it's all about, kind of driving eyeballs and driving revenue for your business to help you scale, and knowing how to, build that momentum with some of these niche or kind of trade publications is sometimes just as important as some of the larger names.
Absolutely. And here are just, a few things we want to leave you with, just in terms of, if you're starting out, start today. It's never too late. Don't think that I should have been doing this long ago, and if I haven't done it till now, I'm not going to do it. It's not late at all. Start pitching in every way that you can. Just make it sustainable. Maybe, think about 5 journalists that you can reach out to in the next week or so, and pitch to them. And one thing to keep in mind is to not give up if it doesn't work out like in one pitch. It's very rare that you send one email and then you got into a feature or got a feature from that. So there will involve some back and forth and some tweaks. And I personally love this one, is leveraging AI effectively and not using it to replace you. what are some of the ways you can actually craft a pitch and use AI to then tweak that pitch in different ways. So make it original, make it yours, and then use AI to just help you enhance it instead of asking AI to write it all together, because journalists can read through that. And I'm sure we can share a lot of stories about how journalists are not looking for getting spammed with a lot of that AI generated content, because everybody is getting spammed with that right now. And yeah, last but not the least, we love making sure that clients don't fall into that guaranteed placement, because that is a scam. And a lot of our clients have come to us personally with having got burnt with that before. And we work with clients knowing that their budgets are a bit more kind of tight. They are maybe starting out PR for the first time, or maybe they've done it a little bit before and they want to now do it further because either they're going out for a fundraising round, or they have launched a new feature for their startup or their product. So we've worked with clients across those industries. In fact, some of them have actually worked with big agencies, had like maybe 8 or 10 people on an account, and then realized that they want a little more hands-on experts, like us, to get involved. So there's definitely different, kind of PR sources or resources that you can work with. So just be mindful about where you want to actually put in your effort and resources. And now that you understand a lot more, we hope that you take away something from this webinar that you can implement yourself. And of course, as always, you can reach out to both of us for any kind of help and support we can provide here. Do you have any last minute or last tips that we can share, Olivia?
Yeah, I would definitely just say I really like your second bullet here that says kind of there isn't a one size fits all. One thing to think about too is not every reporter, even if they're like at the same editorial team, like is not going to respond to the same type of pitch. So for example, I know one editor, like she will respond to like 1-sentence emails. Sometimes I can ask her a question in the subject line and she'll get back to me quickly. But if I send her like a formal pitch that would maybe work for her colleague at the same team, she's not going to, it's not going to get kind of the result. So again, kind of going back to that relationship first mindset, and being open to, pitching in new kind of different ways, because it makes sense, right? Like I read an email differently, or read a tweet, or, a piece, some type of message to me differently than Sneha would, than, someone else would. So it's, again, kind of going back to, those relationships and what, kind of learning what resonates for who.
Absolutely. And that's exactly, not to discount the fact that these are relationships that have been built over the years. And, it is something that does take that time. So yeah, just keep that in mind, and good luck pitching. We're around here for a bit more if there are any questions that we can answer. But if not, just feel free to reach out to us at hello@geeksandexperts.com. Over to you, Jenny.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So we do have these 2 experts with us today. So we welcome your questions in that Q&A box. You can open that at the bottom of your Zoom window. There is a Q&A button there. And let's go into the first question. Where can I find a list of journalists in my industry? What's the best way to go about that?
Yeah, so I can take this one. So there's kind of a number of ways to do this. I would start, there are more formal databases like Muckrack, Meltwater, Cision that you can use from the agency side. And these are tools that agency teams use, as well as kind of PR specialists. But a lot of times kind of the barrier to entry with those larger platforms is sometimes price. But if you look into it and really kind of take your time, you can build a media list from the ground up, just with like a couple hours of like, research and kind of looking on, here's the person's Twitter handle. I remember when I, was getting started in media list building, I loved looking at kind of the Google News section. So, learning how to be really strategic in like what you're searching for on the news. Like, let's say your industry is kind of food tech, going back into seeing what publications write about food tech, what industries write about food tech. And then again, also like thinking about what are those niche publications that I should also be looking for. And typically editors, information is listed like on their website, or you can reach out to them like in obviously other ways, but just keeping in mind being respectful that, if you somehow do get a hold of their, phone, you're not going to spam them. But yeah, it just definitely takes a little bit of time, I think, media list building, but it's a really important part of PR.
Thank you. So we have an attendee with us today that had to put their PR on hold during the pandemic and is looking to start up again with everything. And I know you did share some suggestions on getting started, but we have that question as well as one for someone who wants to reach out for the very first time on PR. So if you have anything to add to that of people wanting to get going again or reach out for the first time, what are the very first things to look at?
Absolutely. I think for somebody who's already done that, firstly, kudos and great that you've already been investing that time and resources in it. The good news is that you already know what you need to be doing or how to be doing that. So just look back on, what kind of got that success for you early on when you started out. What were things that journalists were responding to, and keep in mind that a lot has changed since COVID also. So just being, cognizant of what can you do that makes you still relevant. So if your narrative before COVID was about, going to office and workplace narratives. Let's just take that as an example. Post COVID, a lot of that has, kind of altered. We are talking a little bit more about a hybrid work environment. We're talking about, more like four-day work weeks are kind of making the norm in a lot of different areas. So if that was my niche focus, how would I change that, pre and post? And the same thing can be applied. Let's say you are in the health sector. Pre-COVID, we were not talking maybe as much about, specific viruses like this, but post-COVID, there's so much more information, so much more importance given to those industries. So just kind of looking at it from a different lens, that you are the same business, same brand, but just your story and point of view is changing. And for the person who's just starting out, I think it's very exciting. I think it is, something that you don't have to be nervous about, because I always feel like there's no point in self-rejecting. Why actually reject when, whoever has to reject you will do that when they need to and if they need to. So take your shot. Don't be nervous about, getting no responses at all. I've had clients who, have not heard back at all, and then they'll hear back after 3 months because a journalist just thought of something that, made sense. And they said, oh, I remember somebody reached out about this very specific topic a while ago. So that's what I would keep in mind if I was just starting out. Anything to add to that, Olivia?
No, I think that makes a lot of sense too. I think I would also, if I was kind of starting out or just kind of like restarting, I would ask myself kind of two questions. I would say, one, has there been any updates in the business that could be potentially newsworthy that I might have that you might have overlooked? So have you, secured a very notable customer that's willing to also speak to media that you could do an announcement on? Have you, expanded to a new region, opened a new store, a new state, anything that, you think, because you're so in the weeds on a daily basis about it, you don't think kind of like high level about it and kind of from a bird's eye view that this could be seen as media or kind of newsworthy. It definitely could be. And then the second thing I would also kind of ask, myself is like, what do I love to talk about and what can you talk about well? Because it's easy to kind of, sell yourself or kind of sell someone on your expertise on something when you're authentic about it, right? And so, if you are an expert in cybersecurity, but you are pitching opportunities on like health tech, right? It might be forced and you could do it and you can, finesse a comment or whatever, but it's not going to be as authentic and it's not going to take, it's going to take much more time. So you do want to just ask yourself, like, what can I authentically be able to speak really well to, and what am I passionate about? What topic will I be able to really connect with a reporter on? That's actually something that we do when we start on with clients in our questionnaire. We have a question that says, are there any passion topics that you really feel like you can really speak to? For example, is there like a nonprofit in this industry that you've like really resonated with and maybe donated to before in the space? And again, just kind of sharing that authentic viewpoint with a reporter.
Thank you. So this next question is a fun one. And does it make sense to pitch to PR companies? Is there a way to get PR companies interested in you?
So
That's
again,
an
I think
interesting one.
yeah, it's a good question. I think obviously when you're pitching any agency or vendor, like, putting your business hat on, of course, everybody's trying to make a sale. But again, I think some of the red flags that Sneha mentioned early on in the series was just keeping a really kind of, being just, conscious and kind of skeptical if an agency or organization does approach you, or even if they get back to you, if you reach out to them, saying that they, guarantee a placement, is usually a little bit of a red flag. But yeah, it's a little bit of a balancing act, I would say, pitching, kind of reverse pitching with PR.
So speaking of PR companies, when would a business know that it is time to bring in professionals? Are there certain stages of a business or signs that you have seen with clients that you've worked with that, okay, now is the good time that I need PR professionals working on this to help me?
I think Olivia could be a good person to answer this.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me just plug my computer in because it fell out while we were on.
I can take that while she's coming
Sorry
back,
about
but
that.
no, that's okay. I definitely think that there is no particularly right time. I mean, like I said, a lot of the clients we have worked with are just starting out. They have an idea, and they actually want to gauge what is the visibility or what is the response that some of these ideas can get. So it can be at the idea stage as well, if you're just trying to get a sense of what is out there and what journalists are leaning into, because this is a signal. All of these are signals to show that there is interest, that there is some value in what you're building or what you're doing. And we always love to say that, there is a starting point, but that doesn't have to be like, this has to be the one size or the one answer to what your strategy is. Because we've had clients who will start out on a couple of months of retainer and then decide that they want to actually increase the outreach. So we'll be putting in more resources. We'll be pitching them for awards. We'll be pitching them for speaking engagements, for things that are not just traditional like digital PR. So it really depends on whether you kind of have that resource as well to allocate to it, and also the time. Because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that you get the ROI from it. Because we work tirelessly to make sure that whatever resources you are spending actually give you the results. But for that, we need you to have also the availability to give us some of those points, like during the onboarding questionnaire. Like, we need some of the information that will actually help us craft that pitch. So if you have the bandwidth, I wouldn't say that there's a right or a wrong time. I mean, as early as you can is what my answer would be. But Olivia, yeah, you can share your feedback on that.
No, I totally agree with what you said. I think one thing to think about this too is starting a little bit earlier to make sure that we have kind of the messaging in place, that we're able to kind of get a bio and everything kind of tactically on board, in advance is I think more important than not. I think it's also helpful to think about, are there any, upcoming like specific like seasonal peak times of year for you that you think you would need to have PR done? Kind of work backwards and think, what are the kind of couple months before that? So let's say Christmas is your busy season, looking kind of a couple of months before then about like where you would want press, because it's not gonna happen, and we want you guys to obviously have the ROI there, but it's not gonna happen where you take us on and we're pitching for 2 weeks and you get that huge feature. It takes a little bit of time to ramp up on momentum, and ramp up on kind of those placements and relationship building. So I always like to say, starting a little bit earlier than you think you need is usually kind of a good rule of thumb.
Absolutely. And I think for an event, it can be as much as if you have a big launch coming, or even if you are looking to start raising a round. So since we are talking about that venture capital, kind of fundraising environment, it does take, I mean, fundraising itself is a full-time job. So while you are doing that, if you can just add a PR strategy to it, that's just going to increase the amount of visibility that you get. And of course, that is where our expertise comes in, of making sure you get into those business publications, talking about, to those investors, or coming in front of those investors in different angles about why you started your company, what is the background of your company, what are some of the success metrics or KPIs that you have seen. So those are things to keep in mind, that if you see yourself raising around, in the fall, now's probably a good time to start leveraging PR to get that visibility and credibility.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. And so if someone is needing to do it themselves for now, what is there a recommendation on how much time per week, or, some sort of benchmark of what they can be thinking about they need to be releasing or contacts making, etc.? What are some of those metrics that they might want to aim for as a goal?
I think it would be thinking about what are your current business objectives and how much time can you allocate in a realistic manner, because you want to make sure that you do it on a consistent basis. So for some people that might be, being able to reach out to 5 journalists, every week. For some it might be 25. But this is where I would be mindful of about quality and not quantity, because for every pitch, you want to make sure that you are coming across as relevant or personalized. So do a little bit of homework on the journalist you are reaching out to, instead of just copy pasting the same pitch, to 5 different journalists from different outlets. See if you can actually personalize it a bit, so that means you will be spending a little more time. So I would say time is one. The other thing would be just thinking about how many different pitch angles can you actually come up with, because it is tiring to sometimes keep tweaking that, and seeing it from different angles and trying different, storylines over there. So just in terms of what are other things that you can pick on in terms of what your business is seeing as success, or maybe you have customer testimonials, or you have some case studies that you can leverage. So how much of that can you put together? Because these are just elements of your PR strategy that you're going to be utilizing in the long run. So there's no, I would say, one answer to that. It would just be what feels sustainable and what feels natural, in a way that you don't want to do this for 1 week and then stop. So
Yep.
that would be my input. Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. Like, usually you'll want to stay consistent with it, just because, I think you mentioned this early on, like, you would not ever want to pitch a reporter, offer yourself up as a resource, and then kind of ghost the reporter, or kind of go, totally silent for like weeks on end, because that's going to hurt your relationship, and the editorial world is very small. So it's important to think about, being just kind of really thoughtful. And then kind of going back to what you were saying, Sneha, too, about, personalizing a pitch. So again, it's going back to quality versus quantity. So if you're there's a phrase we like to use in PR called try to avoid something called spray and pray. So you don't want to ever want to like spray, just do a huge mail merge of like a million pitches and hope that something sticks. Because there are editors I know that will like blacklist people, founders and that sort of thing. So you want to be really kind of thoughtful, and then just being, again, thinking about, just authentically connecting with someone. Read their coverage. Like, it sounds so basic, but just be able to maybe reference one of their stories, like read their piece, ask them about, a resource that they like, like a thoughtful question about an article that they wrote a couple weeks ago, and not just like assuming that they're gonna, write about your piece because it's in their industry.
Thank you. So we have one last question here. We have an attendee who is opening up a small business in the retail space in the fitness and wellness area in mid to late summer. And so this attendee was wondering if you had any recommendations for what PR to be doing for this business.
That's exciting. Firstly, congrats on opening your new center. That's super exciting. I think summer is a great time. A lot of people think that summer is when nobody's responding to pitches, or there's no work, or it's kind of a low time. Whereas I think that's the time you can actually stand out. So maybe there are some angles there of the whole New Year's resolution fitness trend has worn off, and people have forgotten about some of the resolutions that they made. Now's the time to just remind them that you have the second half to actually catch up on some of that, some of those goals maybe that you made for your health and wellness. So that is one thing that you can leverage, that it's never too late. And second thing is, in fact, summer is probably a time when a lot of journalists also would not mind getting some of those interesting pitches for the holiday season, because that is when they're putting together a lot of those recommendations, gift guides. So you're not late at all if you want to even be leveraging, starting out December kind of stories and things like that. So I would say those are 2 angles that you can look at.
Yeah, and I would definitely think there's a seasonal component to that as well. So yeah, definitely hit the nail on the head there, Sneha.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Sneha and Olivia. This has been packed full of excellent PR information, definitely an excellent 101 to this whole area, especially for those who are looking to start approaching like venture capital and such to really get themselves in the media and have that credibility that you've been speaking about. So thank you so much. We appreciate your expertise today. And I do want to remind everyone that you will get a link to a PDF of the slides and the recording in a follow-up email in the next couple of days here. The other thing I would like to bring up is that we do have a webinar survey that will show on your screen when I shut down the webinar here. We always love to get your feedback. If you have a few moments to tell us what you thought of today's webinar, and then also what other topics you are interested in having education from the New York Small Business Development Center about. And with that, I will just say goodbye to Sneha and Olivia, and to our attendees. Thank you for all of your input today as well. Have a lovely rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
so much. Take care, everyone. Bye.